Hello and welcome to Lesson 5-3 on adding and subtracting fractions. In tonight's lesson we have two objectives. First, you will be able to add and subtract fractions, and secondly, you will be able to use factoring to find common denominators. Alright, before we talked about how to find the LCM, or the least common multiple of each group. Alright, and again, how you do that, I could just show you real quick on number 1. You do a factor tree. And then what you end up doing is taking the number with that occurs the most. So here we have a group of 2's, and here we have 3 2's. So you take the larger group, which is 3 of them, and you get a factor of 8. That would be the LCM. We're going to use that in the second part of tonight's lesson. But first, we need to learn how to simplify with like denominators. Now, here's how it works. Here's your big hint for adding or subtracting fractions with the same denominator. Alright, when you do these, all you do is add or subtract the numerator. The denominator will stay the same. And I know you learned this in 6th grade, so this is review. So numbers A and B, find each sum or difference, then simplify if possible. Well, here we have 4 9s plus 2 9s. You can see the denominators are both 9, so that stays the same. But if I have 4 9s and I add 2 9s, well, 4 plus 2 is 6. So we get 6 9s. However, that can be simplified. I know that 3 goes into both of them. So I'm going to simplify by dividing by 3, and I get 2 thirds. Now, B has a variable in it, but it works the same way. Just like it did here, we had a denominator of 9s. Well, here we have a denominator of B. So our denominator stays as B. Then we do the top part. If I have 12 and I take away 5, well, that leaves me with 7. So 12b minus 5b is 7b. Go ahead now and do C and D. And when you're all done, come back and check your answer. So go ahead and do that now. All right, let's check C and D. Well, here we have a denominator of 7. And our top, we have 3 7s plus 1 7s. Well, 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 7s. For D, our denominator is K, and then we have 2 plus 3, which is 5. So we get 5 over K, or 5K, or 5 divided by K. So it's very easy when you simplify when the denominators are the same. However, they don't always work that way. Sometimes we have denominators that are different. So when that happens, you need to start by writing the fractions with a common denominator. All right, so here we have 1/6 minus 3/4. Well, in order to solve this one, I can't just do 1 minus 3 because the denominators are different. So what I need to do is find a factor of both. And here, a multiple of both. Well, I know 12 goes into both of them, or 12 is a multiple of both. So I go ahead and do this one. Well, let's see. 6 times 2 gives me 12, so 1 times 2 is 2 12ths. And here I have 3/4. Let's see. 4 times 3, and then 3 times 3. So I get 2 12ths minus 9 12ths. Well, this one can be hard to do, but it works the same way. We talked about how to add and subtract integers. We could do the same idea here. Well, the signs are different. I have a positive 2 12ths and a negative 9 12ths. So I'd subtract the numerators. Here I'd have 9 minus 2. 9's a bigger number. And I get 7 12ths. However, that 9 was negative. So my answer is negative 7 12ths. Same idea for B now. All right, I have a denominator of y, and I have a denominator of 16. And again, I like to write them going down. It makes it a little easier for me to see. Well, if I take a look, well, the only thing these two would have in common is if you multiplied them by themselves. So I'm going to say this is 16 times y. All right, just like here, you could have done 6 times 4 is 24, but I knew 12 went into both. But here, because one's a variable and one is 16, you have to multiply those denominators by themselves. Here, let's see. If I have 16 and I need to get 16y, I need to multiply by y. And I get 5 times y is 5y. Now here I have y, and then I need to get 16y. So I have to multiply each one by 16. And I get 32. Now here, 32 minus 16y minus 5y over 16. That doesn't quite work because 32 and 5y are not like terms. This one has y, this one's just a number. So I'm going to rewrite it as 32 minus 5y, and because the denominators are the same, I could just write them both over 16y. Now you could write it like this. You could write it 32 over 16y minus 5y over 16y. But again, it just works better if you write it as 1. So again, just make it over the denominator of 16y. There we go. So now it's your turn. I would like you to do this one for me. Find 5 sixths plus 4 fifteenths. So go ahead, find common denominators and solve. So go ahead, pause me now. All right, let's do this one. So I have 5 sixths plus 4 fifteenths. So I need a common denominator here. And I know, looking at it, that 30 goes into both. 15, 30, and here I know that 30 and 6 work. So what do I have to multiply 6 by to get 30? Well, that would be 5. So 5 times 5 is 25. And then here I have 15, and well, I multiply 15 times 2. And I get 25 plus 8 is 32 30ths, which I could simplify. I know that 2 goes into both, and that would give me 16 fifteenths. Now, what I have right now is an improper fraction. I have 16 over 15. And so this is written in simplest form as an improper fraction. But if I wanted to write it as a proper fraction, I could divide them out. Well, I know 15 goes into 16 once, and that leaves me with 1 15th. There we go. So 16 fifteenths, or 1 and 1 15th. Now, another way you could solve those ones is using factoring. Again, using the LCM. It's the same problem, but again, I could break down the denominator into factors. And I get 2 times 2 and 3 for 6, and then for 15, I get 3 and 5. Well, in order to do this one, let's see, I could write it as 2 times 3 plus 4 times 3 times 5. All right, but I want to have the common, or at least common multiple here, which you take the biggest number for each. So I have a 2, 3, and 5. So if I multiply those, 2, 3, and 5 is 2 times 3 is 6, times 5 is 30. So I know that in order to do this one, well, this one's already being multiplied by 2 and 3. So I have to multiply this one by 5. And I get 25 30ths. And this one, well, they're already multiplying it by 3 and 5, so I have to multiply it by 2. And I get 8 30ths. And again, you could go through it and get 32 30ths. This was just the last problem we did. I'm just showing you another way to do it. All right. Now, I think there might be a couple problems in your notes that I skipped over. So just go right away to adding mixed numbers. Now, when we have to write or add together mixed numbers. So we have a number and a fraction, 1 and 2/3, 1 1/2, 7 and 3/5. We need to first, in order to add them together, write them as improper fractions. Now the way you do this again is like this. All right, you take the denominator and times it by the whole. Because if I have 10 of something, well, 10 tenths would make a whole. So I do 10 times my whole, which is 10, and then you add in whatever's on top. So 10 times 1 is 10, plus 3 is 13, and I keep the denominator the same, 13 tenths. Again, if I had 2 and 1/3, same idea. 2 times 3 is 6, and then plus 1 is 7, so this would be 7/3. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do these ones. First, I have to write them as improper fractions. Well, 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. I have 5/3 plus, well, 3 times 15 is 45, plus 7 is 52 15ths. All right, that's my first job. Now I need to find the common denominators like we were doing with all the other ones. These denominators are not the same, so I need to find a common one. And here I have a denominator of 3 and a denominator of 15. Well, I know 15 is a multiple of both. So I times 3 times 5 to get 15 and do 5 times 5 to get 25. Here, well, the denominator stayed the same, so I just multiplied by 1. There we go. Now my denominators are the same. I have 25 15ths and 52 15ths, so I add the numerators. And I get 77 15ths. Now again, we want to rewrite this as a mixed number, however. So I'm going to go ahead and see how many times does 15 go into 77. And if I take a moment to think, well, 15 times 4 is 60, so 15 more than that would be 65. Or 75, excuse me. So I know 15 times 5 is 75, and that leaves me with 2 out of 15. 5 and 2 15ths. So now we have a word problem of it. One day you rode a bicycle for 3.5 hours and jogged for 1 1/4 hours. How many hours did you exercise total? Well, I want you to solve this one. I know you rode bike for 3.5 hours and jogged for 1 1/4 hours. So I need to find out how many total hours you worked out. So go through those same steps. Make them improper fractions, add them together, or excuse me, get the denominators the same, then add them together, then rewrite them as a mixed number. So go ahead and pause me now. All right, let's check this one. Well, 3.5 would be written as 7 halves. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And 1 1/4 would be written as 5 fourths. And I know I'm adding the total amount of exercise I did. So I'm going to add them. And let's see. My denominators are not the same, so that's my first job. I see I have denominators of 2 and 4. Well, 4 is a multiple of both. Well, in order to go from 2 to 4, I have to multiply each one by 2. So 7 times 2 is 14. Then down at the bottom, well, the denominator stayed the same, so all I did really was multiply by 1. So the fraction stays the same. So I have 14 fourths plus 5 fourths. 14 plus 5 is 19 over 4. All right? So now I need to rewrite this as a mixed number. I take my number of 19, divide it by 4, and let's see. 4 goes into 19 4 times. And I'm left with 4 3/4. And here it's a word problem, so you should have a label of hours. So total you exercised 4 3/4 hours. All right, that's your lesson for tonight. Tonight we looked at how to add fractions with the same and different denominators, and we also looked at how to add together mixed numbers. I will see you in class tomorrow. Bye-bye.